Yo, what's up YouTube family? Welcome back to the channel. What we are doing in today's episode of the Subaru STi, as you can see by the title of the video, we are repowder coating the Brembo brake calipers on this car. The coating on the calipers isn't terribly bad, but it could be better, and so that's why I'm going to be repowder coating them. Check it out. So as you can see, they're not terribly bad. They're definitely usable how they are, but I want this car to be 100% perfect. Let's get this car in the shop. Let's get started pulling these brake calipers off. So the very first thing we need to do is pull off the wheels on the car. So I'm gonna grab a 19mm socket with my impact. Well, first off, I'm gonna jack the car up, throw it on jack stands, get these wheels off, and then I'll show you how to go about getting the calipers off. Okay, so we got all the wheels off the car. The next thing to do is to pull the calipers off. So on the back side of the caliper, there are two bolts. On the rear, it's 17mm. On the front, it is a 19mm bolt. Now, before you pull the bolts out, since we're going to be taking the caliper all the way off the car, we need to disconnect the brake line as well. That is held on by a 12mm banjo bolt. Right there, guys, that bolt right there. So pull that bolt off first while the caliper is still mounted. Before you pull that bolt out, I would highly recommend throwing a drain pan under there so the brake fluid can drain out. I'm also going to pull off these brake rotors as well because there's no point in having perfectly looking calipers with rusty rotors. So I'll be doing some sort of coating on here. Maybe just paint, maybe powder coat, I don't know yet. All right, guys, we got all of the calipers and rotors off the car. The next thing to do is to get these calipers cleaned up. Before I do that, I'm gonna pull off my new pads and set them aside just so I don't contaminate them with anything. So how you do that, there's these two circlips right here, one on each side. That is a really loud freaking helicopter, Jesus. Two clips on each side, pull those clips out, and then there is two pins right here where my fingers are. As soon as you pull those two pins out, the pads will come out of the caliper. Next up, we are going to run these calipers through my parts washer over there using warm water and degreaser. But before I do that, I'm gonna plug up the calipers where the brake line goes on. So I have these little caps in this thing right here, and I'm sure there's gonna be some in here that fit because I've done this before. Perfect. All right, I'm gonna plug these things up and then we can get to cleaning. So what I'm gonna be using is this heated parts washer right here. So there's degreaser in here and it's just mixed with warm water. This thing works really well. Before I get to cleaning with this though, I'm gonna spray the calipers down with straight degreaser, let it soak in, and they'll get that much cleaner. All right, the calipers are all cleaned up. Next thing to do is sandblasting. So I'm gonna leave that plugged. I'm not gonna split the halves yet just so we don't sandblast the inside of the caliper. It's completely not necessary. This is a sandblaster we are using today. The sand I'm using in here is some green sand. That's really all I know about it, honestly. That's what it looks like right there. Actually, you know what? I may have a bag over here. Yeah, this right here. Okay, yeah, I don't know. That's the number on it, 3060, made by Green Diamond Sand Products. Hopefully that helps you guys out. But this sandblasting process is a very long process. It's probably gonna take me like 2-3 hours to sandblast all 4 calipers and all 4 rotors. So let's get to it. All of the calipers are sandblasted and ready to go. The next thing I'm gonna do is just rinse them off in the sink, try to get all the sand off of them, or most of the sand off. After we get them cleaned, we are gonna pop the pistons out and then get the 2 halves separated by pulling these 4 bolts out. And then we can go through them, get them fully cleaned out, make sure there's no sand on the inside, and move on to powder coating. Next up is pulling the pistons and seals out of the calipers. So there's 2 ways to go about this. Number 1 is you can pull this cap off that we have on the backside and blow compressed air into the caliper, and that may pop out some of the pistons. I've actually had better luck just grabbing a flathead screwdriver. There's a little lip on the piston where the dust seal sits in, and you can just pry the piston out of the caliper, being pretty careful. I've had better luck going that way because the few times I've blown air into the caliper, only like 1 or 2 of the pistons pop out of there. So it's easier for me just to use a flathead screwdriver. To get this seal out of the caliper right here, this dust seal, grab a very, very small flathead screwdriver and just pop it out. It's just lightly pressed in there, like so. All right, pistons and dust seals are out of the calipers. Next thing to do, split the caliper in half. How you do that? 4 bolts on the back side of every caliper. These appear to be 14mm on the fronts. The rears are probably like a 7 or 8mm Allen head. And then as soon as you get those apart, we are going to pull out the bleeder valves, and then we can also pull out the oil seals themselves inside the caliper, being very, very careful with a flathead screwdriver. The caliper is fully disassembled. I'm gonna go bring it over to the sink, get them all cleaned up, like 100% spotless with degreaser, with Dawn dish soap. Just go through them multiple times. There cannot be any sand left on the calipers whatsoever. Just make sure you get these things 100% spotless, okay? You want the calipers to work. If they're standing there, they could get clogged up and not work whatsoever. Number 2, if there's any brake fluid or sand on there, the powder coat job is not gonna turn out that good. Next up is masking off this center part where the piston goes on every single one of these calipers. And then we will be bolting the two halves back together. And the reason for that is because I don't want to powder coat this separately, that separately, and the bolt separately. The head of these bolts are going gold as well, so that'd be a straight pain to powder coat all that separately. This here is the masking tape I will be using. It is powder coat specific. Let's get to work. Calipers are all clean. This one's all plugged up to where we need it to be plugged. So all the threaded holes, I have a random bolt just chilling in there. Not bolts that I'm using because I don't want them to be covered in powder. So the two mounting holes, the hole where the brake line goes on, and the two bleeder valves on top are plugged. And then of course, where the pistons go, those are masked off. This caliper is ready to be powder coated. Let me walk you through this powder coating system real quick. If you're new to the channel and you've never seen what I use, this is what I use. It's the Eastwood hot coat powder coating system. Very, very simple to use. This end right here plugs into the wall. This clip will go onto the caliper. And then as we are spraying, we are gonna hold this button down right here, which will electromagnetically charge the brake caliper, holding the powder on until we can get it in the oven. This is the powder we are using. This is Sun Gold. It bakes for 400 degrees Fahrenheit at 10 minutes as soon as the brake caliper reaches 400 degrees. So 400 degrees part metal temperature. As soon as it hits 400, we'll start the timer for 10 minutes. This is the hopper we are using. I'll take the gold from this bag, put it in the hopper. Hopper will screw onto the bottom of the gun here. Pretty simple to use, guys. I know I've showed you a million times on the channel. First thing we are going to do, grab this rack right here from the oven. We're gonna set it up here. We're gonna take our caliper and we are going to dangle our caliper from this rack, and then we're gonna put the caliper in the oven for 10 minutes. So we have the caliper hanging from our oven rack. As you can see, it is hanging from the holes where the two pins go for the brake pad. That's all good to go. I'm gonna blow it down real quick with compressed air, and then before I throw it in the oven, I'm going to wipe it down with some lacquer thinner just to get all the oil and whatnot from my hands off of the brake caliper. So here is the setup once again. Powder coating gun to the air compressor. The black wire runs to that box. And then from the box, we have a wire that runs to the extension cord, which goes to the wall. And then we have that clip right there that's gonna go onto the brake caliper. And then this trigger button right here, we are gonna hold down as we are spraying and applying the powder to the caliper. The 10 minutes is up on this caliper. We can pull it out of the oven, throw it back up over there, and get to powder coating. All right, friends, the time is up on the caliper. That's really bright. Not the exact color I remember this gold being. Let's pull it out real quick and take a look at it. For some reason, I remember that Sun Gold being a lot more like bronze-ish color, like the color of these OEM calipers. Let's do a little side by side, guys. These things are like really, really gold. Yeah, I don't know if that's gonna cut it. I was going for like an OEM color. I don't know. I feel like that's really, really bright gold, when this one right here is more like a burnt copper type of look. So I'm gonna let this thing cool down for a little bit. Maybe I'll change color, but I'm gonna go on Prismatic Powder's website right now and see if I can find different powder that I could maybe get overnighted up here to Spokane. I think they're down in Portland. So let's go check it out. I guess I'll update you guys here in a minute with what I figure out. All right, so here's the scoop. I got some new powder in. I'll link this exact color down in the description box below. And then we are doing a clear coat on top of the color. And this is how it turns out. Looks absolutely amazing. I have this caliper hanging up right here. I'm gonna go ahead, clean it up, blow it off, throw it in the oven for 10 minutes, and then we can powder coat this caliper. And then as soon as we get the 2 rears done, which I could probably do both rears at the same time, we can take the 2 halves back apart, get our new seals in, get the pistons back in, and get the calipers back on the car. All right, the calipers are coated and ready to be put back together. So the first thing I'm gonna do is pull out these 4 bolts on the backside, get the 2 halves separated, and then we can get our new seals in, our dust seals onto the pistons first, and then the pistons are gonna go inside the caliper. Pretty simple to do. I will be using assembly lube just to kind of help the pistons and seals slide back into the caliper. Okay, so we got the pistons and seals in there. Next thing to do is get this tiny little O-ring in, and it goes right here, guys. Do not miss this O-ring or else you're gonna be squirting fluid out everywhere. I would highly recommend putting a dab of assembly lube on this thing just to keep it in place. Put it in the hole, and then grab the back half of the caliper. And for now, we're just gonna throw these bolts in here and get them snugged up, and then when we get them on the car, then we can tighten them. You feel? You feel? Mm-hmm. We're almost done. All right, from here, all we have to do is put the 2 bleeder valves in and put the new pads in. And when we put these pins in right here, the pins that the pistons or the pads slide on, I'm gonna be throwing a little bit of just this universal grease on there, just so they slide nice and easy. And also, when I put the pads on, I'm throwing some of this disc brake quiet stuff on there as well. They didn't squeak at all before, but I've always used this and it seems to work pretty good. So yeah, let's get her done.
Calipers are done. Time to put them on the car.
All right, homies, the calipers are all finished up, 100%. Next step, put them on the car and bleed the brakes, which is a 2-person job. So if you have someone, get them right now. You like them?
Mm-hmm.
You ready to bleed?
Let's do it.
So the way I bleed brakes is the old school way combined with like the new bleeder style valve, like the vacuum pump. We'll have Bobby in the car pumping the brakes, and then when she holds the brake down, I'll crack the bleeder, and along with the suction pump, it'll pull fluid out of the caliper, and that is the easiest and fastest way I found to do it. So let's get her done. I'm hyped. They look so good. What do you think of the calipers though, for real?
They look good.
Okay. Also guys, make sure you keep your reservoir topped off with brake fluid. One more thing, when you're bleeding the brake system, start at the farthest caliper away from the reservoir. So that's gonna be the driver's side rear, and then we're gonna go the driver's or the passenger side rear, passenger front, and then driver's front. You ready for the last one? I'm gonna pump it. Okay. Okay. All right, one more time for safe measures. All right, guys, the caliper powder coating day is all finished up. Like I said earlier, if you want to pick up this exact powder, it'll be linked down below, as well as the powder coat gun. I'll throw out the seals for the pistons or for the calipers down there as well. Really hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you did, go down below, smash that thumbs up button. Huge shout out to Bobby for helping me bleed the brakes. Thank you guys so much for watching. The next video you're gonna see on the channel is some tie rod boots, and then we will be powder coating the OEM wheels. See you guys then.